good morning again. For those of you who may be just tuning in, wherever it is you're worshiping from, it's great to have you in worship with us this morning here at Messiah. If you want to follow along with today's message, there is an outline in your handout for today. There are the fill in the blanks, and then there are 3 questions that I hope that you will wrestle with and talk about either around your dinner tables or at lunch with maybe your fellow colleagues or people you work with, just somebody to sit and talk and wrestle with those questions for this week. All right? So we are starting a new series. It's called Faithful. No, it's not a misspelling. This is about filling up our faith when we're running on empty. And so today we're opening things up, talking a little bit about the 2 components, faith and trust, that will be major components of our series for the next several weeks. We've all met someone along the way, or maybe you've heard about somebody, but probably most of us have met someone along the way who has what you might consider an unshakable faith. Anybody know somebody like that? Met somebody like that? Yeah. It's like whatever they're going through, however bad it is, however bleak it may seem, they have this unshakable faith, right? You know those people? Yeah. And you're looking at them, nothing shook them. It was just amazing. And obviously I'm dead. I'm dead. All right. Let's charge me back up. I knew I felt a little weak. Green light. Oh, there we go. All right. That'll help my asthma this morning. I'm having an asthma problem this morning. So yeah, and you look at them and you wonder, wow, how do they do that, right? And you look at the circumstance they're going through, the faith, and how strong it is, and you ask yourself, you go, I wonder how I would respond in that situation, right? It's like, how would I respond? How would my faith be, right? I talk that I have strong faith, but would I really have strong faith in those moments? I have this time and time again. Every time I go to sit with someone in Africa, I'm sitting in this 10 by 10 hut, right? Made out of mud and straw and manure, right? And a dirt floor, and there's like 4 people or 5 people living in this 10 by 10 structure, and their faith is absolutely astounding. It's like their faith blows my faith out of the water. Right? And just in talking to them, and they're bringing food to me. Food I know probably cost them 2 weeks' wages, but they absolutely have this strong faith. And I'm sitting there, and sometimes, and I look at them, and I'm like, you know what? If I were living in the same circumstances, would I have faith like these guys do? Right? And so we all know those people, right? They experience suffering, pain, disappointment, within the context of knowing that there's a God who knows, that there's a God who cares, that there's a God who sometimes intervenes, and a God who sometimes might not intervene for some reason or another, but their faith is just unshakable. And the question that we're going to ask, and hopefully I'll answer by the end of this series, I hope to answer this question, is where does that faith come from, and how do we get it? Right? Where does this faith come from, and how do we get it? And I thought this was a perfect time for this series because I don't know about y'all, but for the last 2 years, my faith really was on the struggle bus. It was tough between what I was going through in terms of my mental health struggles personally, and just all that was being thrown at me, right, as a leader of a church. Seminary did not prepare any of us to lead a church during a pandemic. All right, we barely covered how to read a QuickBooks Excel spreadsheet for financials, right? It's like nothing prepared us to how we were supposed to lead when you can't meet, right? And so it was like, are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? Can we do this? Can we do that? Is it going to work? Is it not? All of those things. And it put my faith through the ringer. And not only that, but personally, in my own personal life, man, I was struggling. I was struggling with some mental health issues that were going through with anxiety and some sleep stuff, and it was just tough. And so I looked at some folks and I was like, man, how, and I kept asking, how do these people have this faith? How do these people have this faith? And I went to Liberia with my son on sabbatical, and I saw, some of the struggles that people had, and I was just like, I want that faith. So what is it? What are the things that have these people have such faith? So if you're looking for faith, if you're looking to regain faith, if you didn't have faith and you want to get it, if you have faith and you want to strengthen it, this series is for you, all right? So I hope that you tune in over the next couple of weeks, all right? So you ready? Here we go. Let's get into the text for today, because if you follow Jesus through the Gospels, you're going to discover that there are two things that amazed Jesus, all right? There are two things that amazed Jesus, all right? And the Greek word, we're going to look at that Greek word in a little bit. And we find this word in the text for today. Okay? Jesus is going along, he's walking with his disciples, and a centurion, right? A centurion in the Roman army walks up to him, and he asks Jesus for a favor. Of all people, a Roman centurion walks up to ask Jesus for a favor. Now, Jesus' disciples cannot be happy that Jesus is talking to a Roman, much less a centurion in the Roman army. Remember, they're the occupying force, right? They're the enemy. And not only that, but for a lot of people, they still think Jesus is the one who's going to come and deliver them out of Roman hands. But he's talking to them. And he says, "Sir, I have a servant who is at home who is sick. Would you heal my servant?" Now, I want you to think about this for a moment, okay? He doesn't ever ask Jesus to come to his house, does he? In the first question. It's Jesus who initiates that he will follow him to his house. The Roman centurion doesn't ask him, all right? And so they're looking at Jesus, and they're like, no. If he's the Son of God, like he says he is, if he is who he says he is, there's no way that he's going to go to his house. And then one of the disciples is like, but he just said, sure, I'll go to your house. And they're like, he can't be, because if he goes to this house, he's a Gentile, right? What happens to a good Jewish person if you go into the house of a Gentile? According to Jewish tradition, you become what? Unclean, right? Ceremonially unclean, right? You become unclean. But he offers to follow the centurion to his home. And what does the centurion say? He says, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to come home with me, because I know how this works. And Jesus says, really? And he says, yeah, because here's the deal. I represent the Roman Empire, right? I'm high up in the Roman Empire. And when I tell people to go do things, they go and do them. And I've been watching you. I've been seeing you. And I know there's more to you than what people think. And I know that you could not do the things you do if you were not under something bigger or someone bigger than yourself. So, if you want to heal my servant and you agree to do that, just do what I do. Issue the command, and I know it'll be done. And what does this text say? The text says that when Jesus heard it, he was what? Amazed, right? When Jesus heard this, he was amazed. Now, the Greek word here is this word, thaumazo. All right? Thaumazo translates into amazed, astonished, or impressed. All right? It says Jesus was amazed. Jesus was amazed by what? Right? What was he amazed at? Because people ask Jesus for favors all the time, right? I mean, just before this, a leper comes to him and ask him to heal him. But the text doesn't use this word. The text doesn't say he was amazed by this guy, right? What was he amazed by with this guy? His faith. Yeah. What does it say? Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with what? Such great faith. Everybody say great faith. Yeah. That was the thing that Jesus was amazed at. This guy's great faith. Right? We've heard of Amazing Grace. This is amazing faith. Right? Could write a whole new song. Right? Amazing faith. How sweet the sound. That kind of fits. It saved a wretch like me. Yeah, it does kind of fit, doesn't it? All right. But what made it so amazing? What made this guy's faith so amazing? What is different? All right, I still want to dig down. There's still something left, right? What made it so different than the other encounters Jesus had with other people? I think it's because the centurion puts two and two together. That he understands who Jesus is. And he recognizes the uniqueness of Jesus. And when he realizes who Jesus is, he goes all in. He puts all his chips on the table. Right? He recognizes who Jesus is. And when he does, he goes all in. Fun fact, Jesus was never amazed by anyone's knowledge. He was never amazed by knowledge. Jesus is never like, wow, you're so smart. Oh my God, that was such great insight. Wow, how many Bible verses do you have memorized? Good job. Because it's not just about up here. And this is what we get wrong so much in Christianity and in the faith today. We think that it's all head knowledge. Jesus isn't interested in head knowledge. He isn't amazed. The thing that got his attention the most was people living out their faith. Right? It was living it out. I've always said, people don't need to hear a sermon as much as they need to see a good one. And I may have just preached myself right out of a job, but I'm just saying it. Right? It was faith that wasn't simply just in their head, but it was faith that was lived out in the reality of life. That's what amazed him. This guy is living out his faith. And it's amazing. And Jesus calls attention to this. He says, you know what? Gentiles are going to come from east to west, and they're going to get into the kingdom of heaven. But some of you who think you're in, who think you have it all up here, aren't. Boy, did that ruffle some feathers. This was a guy who was on the outside who got it, Jesus said, more than the people who were on the inside. Now remember that I said there were two things that amazed Jesus? All right, this one was the first. The second one, where we see the word pop up, is when people lacked faith. Okay, it was the lack of faith. All right, two things amazed Jesus: great faith and lack of faith. All right, Peter, oh my God, you are the Son of God. You are the Messiah, right? He gets it right. He knows that in his head. Then he doesn't live it out, and what does Jesus tell him? Get behind me, Satan. Right? And here's what we learn if we follow Jesus throughout the Gospels, is that Jesus' agenda was that his followers, all of us, not only then, but now, even in the 21st century, would become people of great faith, not of great knowledge. An active, in spite of, gonna believe anyway faith. That people would have great faith, active faith that they would use and have in their lives and show people. It's one of the greatest things that I have wrong with our seminary system. I've always said we create great thinkers and pastors, but we don't create great doers. And this is what can get confusing. This is where it can get confusing. Because oftentimes we confuse faith with hope and optimism. And they're two totally separate things. Faith is different than hope and optimism. Right? And here's how they're different. It's because faith always has an object attached to it. Right? When you get on a plane, you hope that you get from point A to point B. But when you say, I have faith that we get from point A to B, you put your faith in something. And that something is the plane itself and the pilot who's driving it, right? It has an object attached to it. When Jesus talked about faith, it wasn't a faith that was like, oh, we're going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to work out. That's optimism. That's hope. What amazed Jesus was not hope and optimism of the centurion. What amazed Jesus was the centurion's faith in Jesus himself. Right? The centurion's faith was tied to something, and that was Jesus himself. And everywhere Jesus went, people were invited to place their faith in him. To trust in Jesus. In fact, we just heard this in the text for Holy Thursday. As Jesus gathered with his disciples, he told them the very same thing. He says, hey, guys, after he tells them that he's going to be betrayed and arrested and all that stuff, that'll take the air out of a party, won't it? And he says, what does he say? He says, hey guys, don't let your hearts be troubled. And in the English translation, we have this. Trust in God. Trust also in me. Now, here's what's interesting. And John does something really crazy in the New Testament Greek. You don't see this anywhere else but here. And this is why. Because there's no word in Greek for trust. No word in Greek for trust. There's the word believe, beliefs, and belief. And a lot of times we translate it into trust. And so what John does is he takes that word in Greek for belief, believe, or believe, and he marries it to a preposition in, en, or we would translate it as in. Believe in. So basically he says, guys, you believe in God, right? You believe in God, right? You believe in God, believe also in me. And why does he say that? Why can Jesus say that? Why can Jesus say, if you believe in God, then you can also believe in me? Because it communicates trust, right? Trust in me. It's what it communicates. Believe in communicates trust in. Trust in me. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in me. Trust in the one who sent me. Just as you should trust God, you should also trust me. In other words, I want to be the object of your faith. Jesus tells his disciples, I want to be the thing that you believe in. And if you believe in and trust in God, then you can believe in and trust in me. And what he's doing here to his disciples is basically saying, what you know about God and who God is and what God is like can be seen through who? Through me. If you want to know what God is like, if you want to know who God is, look to me. And trust and believe in me. Through my words, through my actions. What we learn about God, we learn through Jesus. I always tell people, if you want to know who God is, don't start in Genesis, start with Jesus. Because Jesus is going to show you who God's like and who God is. Then go back and read Genesis. Because Jesus was the perfect representation of who God is. And in that moment, he's telling his disciples and he's telling us, look no further than him if you want to know what God is like. Place your faith and place your trust in me so you will know what God is like, so that I can point you in the direction of God. It's not so that you can know more about God, but so that you can establish a relationship with God. And why is that important? It's because the foundation and the currency of any relationship is what? Trust. If you do not have trust in the other person, nothing else matters, right? And so throughout his ministry, Jesus is inviting people to place their confidence, to place their trust, to place their faith in him. And that's what amazes him about the centurion, because that's what the centurion does. He places his belief in, his trust in Jesus by saying, all you need to do is say the words, and I know it's going to happen. And what happens? Jesus says it, and immediately he gets word that his servant is healed. He's not even back home yet. And he puts two and two together. Later on, we think this is the same centurion who stands at the cross, who says, surely this is the Son of God. Right? So how do we get that faith? How do we get it? How do we get that faith and trust? Well, over the next several weeks, I hope to answer that question as we're going to look at 5 faith catalysts. What do catalysts do? They ignite something, right? 5 faith catalysts that will hopefully ignite your faith once again. And my hope is that in diving into these 5 catalysts, it can help you begin rebuilding and reestablishing your faith in Jesus so that you can know who God is and what God is like. So whether you want to get faith, you want to regain your faith, or whether you want to strengthen your faith, I hope that you'll come back and join us over the next several weeks. Because I guarantee you by the end of it, hopefully your faith will be full once again. In Jesus' name, all God's children said, amen. Let's stand and sing our next song.
Abounds in deepest waters, your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you've never failed, and you won't start now. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. I will call upon your name.